a comprehensive reform, and India deserves.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Official statements from China's Taiwan Affairs Office, Beijing has condemned Taiwan leader William Lai's New Year's Day speech as full of lies and malice after he vowed to strengthen Taiwan's defense just days after PLA live-fire drills around the island. According to the Israeli military, Israeli forces have killed a 26-year-old Palestinian identified as Khattab al-Sarhan during an early morning operations in the occupied West Bank after opening fire on people accused of throwing stones at soldiers. The Israeli military has said the stone throwing was part of an ambush. A member of Iran's security forces was killed during protests that have swept across the country since last week, local media reported. The United States has carried out strikes against 3 vessels in international waters that were suspected of narco-trafficking, according to the U.S. Southern Command. The vessels were traveling as a convoy. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced the withdrawal of National Guard troops from Portland, Chicago, and Los Angeles, hints at stronger comeback in the future. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has voiced his confidence on victory in Ukraine, while his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelenskyy has warned that peace cannot come at any cost in their respective New Year's addresses to their countries. Chinese rocket maker Landspace is seeking to raise about $1 billion in Shanghai Star Market IPO after its listing application was fast-tracked and accepted by the Shanghai Stock Exchange. Landspace's IPO comes as Beijing pushes aerospace as a strategic priority. Elon Musk's brain implant company Neuralink will start high-volume production of brain-computer interface devices and move to an entirely automated surgical procedure in 2026, Musk said in a post on social media platform X. Now we move on and we start from Asia. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has praised the devotion of his troops and the patriotic spirit of his people in New Year's address. The speech was delivered during a lavish celebration at Pyongyang's May Day Stadium to mark the start of 2026. Kim has emphasized loyalty and national pride as central themes for the year ahead. The event featured large-scale displays and ceremonies showcasing military strength. Analysts say the address reflects Pyongyang's ongoing focus on unity and defense readiness. Let's listen in.
아울러 지난 한 해를 값비싼 위운으로 빛내인 긍지와 성스러운 복무의 결의에 충만되어 신년의 여명을 마중하고 있는 영웅적인 우리 군대의 장령 군관 병사들에게 축하의 인사를 보내며 멀리 이역에서 조국을 그리는 뜨거운 마음을 안고 새해를 맞이하고 있을 해외 작전 부대 장병들에게 전투적 경의를 드립니다.
Now we move on to Europe. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has alleged that Russia is carrying the near 4-year war into the new year with more than 200 drones fired at Ukraine, mainly targeting energy infrastructure. The ministry has said that a significant number of households in the Volyn and Odessa regions in the northwestern and southwestern Ukraine, respectively, were disconnected from power supplies by the strikes, as well as some in the Chernihiv region north of the capital Kyiv. According to the governor of Volyn, more than 103,000 households in the northwest Volyn region were left without power due to the strikes. Volyn region is several hundred kilometers from the front line and borders NATO member Poland. Now for this discussion, we welcome Ms. Alison Mutler. She's a former AP Bureau Chief, joins us live from Bucharest. Thank you very much, Ms. Mutler, for joining us, and Happy New Year to you. Now, thank you. Now, looking at this, although it's New Year, we're again discussing this. Unfortunately, this is continuing on to 2026 now. The escalation. How do you think that this we will continue to see negotiation between Russia, Ukraine, and U.S. in the coming days?
Russia's action in the last few weeks has showed that they're keeping up the pressure. They're continuing a relentless attack on Ukraine, on energy structures. That is particularly done at this time. It's very cold in this part of the world. It's below freezing. People need heating and hot water. And by targeting energy structures, that keeps the people of Ukraine in cold and darkness, and that puts pressure on leadership. But Russia is also trying to show, as negotiations are happening in various capitals in various places of the world, it's trying to show that it will continue its military onslaught, its hostilities against Ukraine, unless it gets what it wants. It is trying to show we are the big, strong force here, and unless you acquiesce, you agree to our demands, this violence, these killings will not stop. They will not slow down. And so they are showing absolutely no mercy. It's a relentless, it's a brutal attack on Ukraine, particularly at the New Year, where people would like to celebrate. Instead of hearing fireworks, they're hearing bombs going off, and they're cold in their homes. And that is a deliberate strategy of the Kremlin, of Vladimir Putin, to keep up the pressure. And the reason for that is Russia wants its maximalist demands, and it's very concerned that those demands will not be met, or they'll be watered down, which would be impossible from what we see for the Kremlin to accept.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that. And Ms. Butler, are there any implications, as you know, this region that was striked last night, or in this latest strikes, was very close to NATO borders, Poland's border?
That's a very good observation, Asuma. Russia, again, is showing at the beginning of the war, all the attacks were on eastern Ukraine, as we call it, the Donbass, Kherson, those areas, because that is where the ethnic Russian population was. But they have widened those attacks as they've become frustrated because they have been unable to make Ukraine surrender. And they have widened their attacks to also Odessa, Kiev, but also near NATO members. Because according to the NATO Charter, any attack on a NATO member is an attack on the whole of NATO. So they have deliberately been attacking near Poland, Romania too, and those are NATO members. And the idea is to make NATO members nervous, but also to show Russia, for it to show its strength, is that we are quite prepared to take this war beyond eastern Ukraine, and we're going to come near your borders. And the fears obviously are in Europe that the war could escalate and expand to Europe. So I think it's a deliberate strategic decision by Russia. They started in the autumn, as you will remember, with drone attacks on Poland and other countries, including Romania, where I live, but not only. But now there are missile strikes near the border. Again, it is to remind NATO members, particularly Poland, which is the strongest, biggest NATO player in Eastern Europe, that unless our demands are met, this is the underlying message, unless our demands are met, we can violate Polish territory, and that would, of course, generate a response from NATO at large, the whole of the NATO apparatus.
Thank you for highlighting on that escalation and joining us. Ms. Butler, please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on to the Middle East, Israel has announced that a ban on 37 international NGOs operating in Gaza will be enforced. The groups failed to meet security and transparency standards, according to them, including disclosure of their Palestinian staffs. They have been formally notified to cease operations by March 1st. Meanwhile, the new rules were introduced 10 months ago and demands full disclosure of personnel, fundings, and operations. Humanitarian organizations, including Doctors Without Borders, World Vision, and Oxfam, are affected. However, the UN and international rights groups have warned the ban will worsen Gaza's humanitarian crisis, where nearly 80% of the buildings were damaged and 1.5 million people are homeless. Israel says the measure prevents the misuse of aid frameworks for terrorism. Let's listen in.
It is devastating. We've seen the numbers from the IPC a few weeks ago. We saw them in the summer. There's been a slight improvement, but that's not good enough for the time of a ceasefire, and 6 months after the famine was declared. We should have seen much more improvement in Gaza. Of course, like I said, it will severely. It's winter here in Palestine. It was raining. It rained a record number of rain per millimeter yesterday in Palestine since 1992. The impact is devastating. The fact that shelter materials, for example, cannot enter. For families, this will mean slower repairs. It will mean fewer supplies. It will mean longer waits for basic services. It will directly affect access to clean water, to sanitation, to shelter materials, to public health interventions. Aid that should be moving predictably will remain delayed. It will remain restricted, and it will remain stranded.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Ms. Alison Mutler. She's a former AP Bureau Chief, joins us live from Bucharest. Thank you very much, Ms. Mutler, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, what are the political consequences of, yet again, another ban on many international NGOs who are supposedly helping Gazan populations, who are, of course, in need, yes?
Well, first of all, let me say this is an absolutely miserable situation. It's clear that the population in Gaza are stricken, they are suffering. It's also clear that there are terrorist militants within Gaza, and they are completely different to the ordinary Gazan citizens. Now, optically, this looks, again, very bad for Israel. It's like they're cutting humanitarian aid. They want these people to suffer. They want them to be in famine, and basically to sort of, disappear off the face of the earth. But from security terms, it's well known that militant groups do place their people in humanitarian organizations. And Israel's concerned. Israel's extremely security-minded, and has been long before the militant attacks in October 2023. They're very, very careful about who works also for international news organizations, particularly the people stringers, so the freelancers, but also in humanitarian organizations, because that is where militants like to embed their people, because they consider they are above suspicion and do not need to be vetted. So Israel is probably being excessive about its security, but historically it's had to be. But again, it is in PR terms, it's a setback for Israel, because it looks as if they are trying to prevent aid. Now, Israel says only 1% of the aid from these organizations actually helps the Gazans, and they say they are allowing UN and other groups. But it does look bad for Israel. But I think we also have to understand that is the way militant and terrorist groups do act. They place their people in international organizations like aid organizations, like in the media, and they have a double role. But these are complicated things, and the general public just doesn't necessarily understand them. So I think overall it is a blow for Israel's reputation, which has suffered in the past few years. But I also understand the security concerns of Israel and the way that militants operate.
With that, I would like to thank Ms. Alison Mutler for joining us today and sharing that insight from Bucharest. Thank you very much. Now we move the focus on to Asia. A 50-year-old Hindu man, Kokun Das, was injured in a violent attack in Bangladesh's Shariatpur district on December 31st, marking the fourth reported attack on a Hindu individual in the country just within 2 weeks. According to reports, Das was assaulted by a mob while returning home and sustained serious injuries. The incident adds to growing concerns over the safety of religious minorities in Bangladesh. Earlier cases include the alleged mob lynching of a 29-year-old Amrit Mondal on December 24th and the killing of 25-year-old Deepu Chandra Das on December 18th, following the false blasphemy accusations at his workplace. India has expressed strong concerns over what it describes as unremitting hostility towards minorities, including Hindus, Christians, and Buddhists. However, Bangladesh's foreign ministry has rejected these claims, calling them exaggerated and misleading. former Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has accused the interim Yunus-led government of failing to protect minorities and emboldening extremist elements. This issue has further strained India-Bangladesh relations, with New Delhi closely monitoring developments amid rising regional and international scrutiny. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Siddhakarji. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for joining us once again. Happy New Year to you, sir. And now looking at this, the minority, especially Hindu people in Bangladesh, seem to be going through these kind of hate crimes now. What should Bangladesh's government prioritize, as these minorities are of course part of their
strategy.
Yes, their people.
Strategy.
Yes.
Yeah, Asoma, good evening. Happy New Year to you, everyone in the studio, and
Thank you.
all the viewers of NewsX World. Yeah, it's very easy and simple to frame a question like what should be the Bangladesh strategy. Neither Bangladesh nor India can have a counter strategy to the unfolding activities without any strategy by forces inimical to India who are operating in Bangladesh. Because I don't see any strategy at the local level. However, there is a bigger plan which is in place, which is taking place basically to destabilize India at a strategic level, at the global level, and also retard the economic progress and the development which India is making very rapidly. That perhaps, to the best of my understanding, is the overall goal. And global powers are trying to create leverage so that whenever they want, they can twist the tail of India. So if that be the kind of a global threat, what should India do? That is where drawing red lines is very easy on paper, but to implement on ground, it actually demands a lot of astute, I would say, craftsmanship, architectural engineering of implementation, which will actually curb or bring this mayhem or gradual genocide, I would say, to an end. Once upon a time, the Hindus in the East, the Bangladesh or erstwhile East Pakistan or East Bengal used to be 33% way back in 1901.
Yes.
Now the percentage of Hindus have come down to 7.95%, around 1.13 million. That is the kind of Hindus in Bangladesh. And when you look at the spread over Bangladesh, well, it is very difficult to say that at particular point, except for Chittagong tract and to some extent, I would say, high percentage towards north of the line joining South Dinajpur and North Dinajpur, where you have this Lal Monirhat airfield in that division. Rest all are spread out in a manner that you cannot concentrate your any strategy for implementation to contain, counter and contest or prevent such kind of occurrences. Very, very difficult. So actually speaking, you see, whenever a thing like this takes place, it takes place for multiple factors, but two important factors are, one, and Ukraine and Russia. So these are the bigger things. South China Sea. Bangladesh, nobody could care, because the basic aim, if at all it is there basically for the CIA or the USA to leverage the incidences occurring in Bangladesh to its advantage. What is to its advantage? Its advantage is that it should be able to have a trade deal and access deep into the agriculture sector of India. It should be a favorable trade deal. It should coerce India to buy oil and gas completely from USA. It should force India to buy all the defense equipments and hardware from USA, not from France or not any other country. It wants to make India totally dependent on the USA, which is against the strategic autonomy, the foreign policy central paradigm of India ever since its independence. So will India ever buckle under pressure? I don't think so. Despite all efforts by Donald Trump and his team, they can't. It is just a matter of time when India is going to actually shake out, also give a good shake-up call to USA. In my opinion, this is what my personal opinion is, but I don't think it will ever buckle under pressure. Yes, couple of tons of maybe corn and soybean could be bought from USA, but USA is also forcing the GM seed, the GM products to be bought from USA. So therefore, India to buckle under pressure and succumb to this pressure at the cost of compromising the aspiration and interest of its own farmers will be highly detrimental. It will go against the national interest of India. I don't think India is going to do. But the question which you are asking pointedly, international opinion or no opinion, they couldn't care less what is happening in Bangladesh. Whether Hindus are dying or going to be subjected to genocide, nobody is bothered. Not even human rights, not even Amnesty International. If one odd article comes out, that doesn't change or alter the course of action of the agencies who operate. Because who are the agencies? Predominant agencies, they are the deep state. They are not overtly visible to the outside world. They have been operating behind the skin in a covert manner. It's very difficult to handle them. Therefore, the ball is in the court of India. India has to fend for itself. India has to fight its battle in a calibrated manner without getting drawn into a long-drawn conflict against the forces inimical in Bangladesh. If at all India goes to hit, who does it hit? Is there any identifiable target at any particular point? I don't think so as on today. If there are far and few. They are in singles. It will be very difficult to have a collective kind of a target like the way we addressed during Operation Sindoor Phase 1 in Pakistan. So therefore, my recommendation through you and your channel is to focus on the tap from where the floods of terrorism is flooding. And that tap is nowhere. It is Pakistan's Rawalpindi. In Rawalpindi, it is Chief of the Army Staff under whom the ISI is operating with impunity. That is the main focus where India should lay its eyes on. Back to you, Asuma.
Very enlightening. Major General, thank you for sharing. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we stay in the region. In Iran, unrest over high inflation has turned deadly, with a man killed during protests in Kuhdasht. The victim, 21-year-old Amir Hossam Khodayari Fard, was reportedly a member of Basij militia. The protests, which began on Sunday over inflation and a weakening currency, has intensified across the country. Iran's clerical rulers face mounting pressure amid 40% inflation and ongoing Western sanctions. While authorities have offered dialogue with union representatives, security forces have increased their presence on the streets. The Iranian rial has lost half of its value against the dollar in 2025, adding to the growing discontent. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Siddharth. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Siddharth, for staying with us. Now, looking at Iran, although Iran's protests seemed reportedly peaceful until yesterday, it has increased in intensity, and now we already hear a man killed. What more can you tell us about this evolving issue in Iran, and how is this government dealing with the protests?
Asuma, great question.
Thank
And
you.
Iran as a country, it's to be understood, its psyche is to be understood from the historical perspective. It once upon a time used to be a global empire, used to be a global power, once upon a time, the Persian Empire. And now they live in an ideology and a conceptual framework and expectations of the historical predominance. So when I say this, that while today's situation in Iran is pretty, I would say, they're almost like hand to mouth. You see, the value of a dollar has plunged to 1.42 million reals. 1.42 million reals in just about 6 months, it has gone down by 56%. Okay, and the rate of inflation in a year and a half back, it had crossed 52, 54, 56, 57. Now it is down to 42.2%, if I'm not wrong. And the food products have gone up, the rates have gone up by 72%. So, under these circumstances, when you compare the GDP, there are misleading informations between the global agencies, the World Bank, IMF. There are different figures. Somebody says 356 billion, some says it is 463, approximately around that. But we'll leave it at that. Just merely rate of inflation and the rise in food price and the value of real in comparison with the dollar. If you take these two, three factors into consideration, the entire country is absolutely economically collapsed. It is unviable to run the country under these circumstances. So keep this one factor in the back of your mind. Second factor is Iran being what it is historically, it is to be a big empire. Now they would like to fight to protect their self-esteem or character of the country. The character of the country, they fight back. They don't give it up so easily. In social media, there has been a saying going on, it's going circular and viral, and it says that 14 presidents of USA, 10 prime ministers of Israel, 2 queens of UK, they could not change or do anything. They could not do anything but defeat Iran. Not change regime, but defeat Iran. So how can this Israel and USA during one President Donald Trump's time, how can they do it? So this is the kind of parallel they're drawing. What I mean to say, Iran is a strong country, but its economy has actually gone down significantly. But compare this with the objective of USA. USA and Israel, they are hell-bent upon going in for the next attack so as to weaken its capability to make the nuclear weapons. Any country which is actually losing its self-esteem for its own protection of the country, they will definitely go in for the nuclear warhead. To my analysis and assessment, I firmly believe that they have got the nuclear warheads. Why aren't they declaring it? They should declare it openly, and thereafter there will be a changed contour of geopolitics and things will go absolutely different. Last but not the least, to specifically answer your question, what strategy? Iran as on today is fighting for survival. That is one. Second, if you corner a cat within the four walls, the stage and time will come when the cat is going to pounce back. That pouncing back could be in form of 9/11. It could be in form of 7/7. It could be in form of any other terrorist attack or any other biological or chemical attack, which we may not be prepared for at our place of their choosing. So that is what one should be very, very dreadful of. And diplomacy and dialogue, though it is painful, time-consuming, it will always pay a dividend in the long run. That's all. Thank you so much. Back to you, Aswa.
Thank you very much, Major General. With that, I would like to thank Major General Sudhakarji for sharing that deep insight on this topic. Thank you. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.